What's up, guys? I wanted to use this video to describe the steps of beta oxidation. Before talking specifically about the steps, I want you to recognize what this molecule is and how it's different from a normal fatty acid molecule. So you'll notice that this molecule has this SCOA group on it, and as a result, that's called a CoA group. The entire molecule is called a acyl-CoA. And notice how this is not a standard fatty acid. This is a standard fatty acid, where you have an R group and then you have a carboxyl group at the end. We replace this OH group with this SCOA group, and the reason we make that modification is because the mitochondrial membrane is impermeable to normal fatty acids. We have to modify it if we want to make the fatty acid enter the mitochondria so that we can then break it down into acetyl-CoA. Alright, so the first step that we have in beta oxidation is a redox step. So just notice that anytime you have an oxidation reaction, in this case we have acyl-CoA becoming oxidized, it's never going to happen by itself. It needs to be coupled to another reaction. So that coupled reaction here is FAD to FADH2. If you're ever confused about whether FAD to FADH2 is an oxidation or reduction reaction, just know that you're adding electrons to D here. You can think about it that way. You can think about it as adding hydrogen electrons, which causes it to become FADH2. And just as a mnemonic for oxidation reduction, I like to use this mnemonic oil rig. So if it's gaining electrons, it's reduction. Clearly FADA is gaining electrons here, so that's being reduced, which means this acyl-CoA molecule is being oxidized. So the difference that you might notice here between the first molecule and the second is this double bond here versus the single bond up there. And you might think, well, if there's a double bond, how are you losing electrons? Well, we can draw it out this way. Let me use a different color. If you have two hydrogens here, which is what you initially have, if you compare it to here, you only have one hydrogen. In other words, you lost one of these hydrogens at each spot. That's where the oxidation is coming in. So the first step is an oxidation reaction to the acyl-CoA molecule, which turns it into this molecule here. And then the next is a hydration. So essentially you're adding H2O to this molecule, and that causes there to be an OH deposited here and an H deposited here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see the large scheme of things. And now, once you have this OH molecule on this carbon and the H molecule on this carbon, you use a specific molecule called, let me back that up. You do something called dehydrogenation, which is whenever you turn an alcohol, let's just say, into a ketone. And that's exactly what's going on here. So you're turning this alcohol into a ketone. That means that you're making it more oxidized. Again, if you're ever confused about what oxidation means, if you're ever going from an alcohol to a double bonded oxygen, just think about it as having somewhat more oxygenation going on there. And that's what oxidation means. And like I said, oxidation reductions are always coupled. So if the OH is being oxidized, that means that this has to be reduced. Notice that in this step we're using NADH to become reduced, whereas initially we used FAD to become reduced. And as a result, now what you see is we have a ketone here and a ketone here. And finally, the final step in this process is we use an enzyme called thiolase to cut apart at this carbon. And as a result, what happens is, so this is the original molecule. This is what you have. And now you have two of these exact same molecule. And the reason we cut at this carbon, and the reason it's called beta oxidation, is you're essentially separating the molecule at this carbon, which is considered the so this is the alpha carbon, that's the beta carbon, and now you have a new ketone group at the beta carbon relative to this initial molecule.